Yo, guys, I just had a huge download in the shower just now, and I had to quickly get out the shower and run to record this because this is a strong, strong message, and it's the power of prayer. Now, we're going to get into the science of it because I want you guys to understand it's more than just a mythical explanation of the power of prayer. Think of God like this. If God can do all things, he's called the Most High because, like a roller coaster, when you go up, you have the most potential energy at the top of a roller coaster, assuming you have no propulsion devices going throughout the roller coaster. The highest you can go on a roller coaster is that first peak, and then you drop from there. Everything from that point is just a subsidiary of the actual highest peak. So if the creator is the most high, they're the most high point, the most potential energy. And if the creator is all things, then they are literally everything. Okay, so let's start with that. And first, I want to start with a disclaimer. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a pastor. I'm not in the clergy of any sort. This is just my personal experience. I had a revelation when I was 20. And the main things I got from that revelation were show love, be filled with the spirit of truth, and complete your assignment. So my assignment specifically is to give Bibles. If you guys want to help me, just go to busyworksbeats.com/book. I wrote what's called the Producer Bible, and it basically takes the parables of Jesus and rewords it for the producer community or music artists who can understand. But the common person can read it as well. So I also give away Bibles as well behind the scenes when I can afford to. They're very expensive. Okay, so I want to start this off with understanding the power of prayer. Now, most of us are taught to chant repetitive things that we have no conviction behind. You know, I grew up in the church. My grandfather was drafted, to World War II. He was a medic in France. He saw the worst of the worst of the worst of humanity. He wasn't just on the battlefield dodging bullets. He was seeing people's heads blown up, arms falling, all types of stuff, and it hardened him in a way that I've never seen, but it made him appreciate humanity and appreciate love in life, when he came back home. And he was very silent after that. I'm pretty sure he was traumatized after that. My father, is a law enforcement officer, and whatever his rank is, I'm not sure the specific rank, but he's seen things about the, how dark humanity can get as well. So these people are very humble because not only did they see the bright side of humanity, they saw the dark side. And only until you can appreciate both sides of that pendulum, that spectrum, until you see both sides, you can't truly appreciate it. I've grown up in Coatesville, Pennsylvania. This is a city at the time known for murder, known for drugs, crack specifically, and marijuana, and all types of other drugs I didn't know of. But the city was known to have actual murders. It was like a murder every month or every 3 months. It was bad. And it was a small town. Now, the reason they had murder was because they brought in criminals from the city nearby, Philadelphia, excuse me. And then those criminals came from New York. So it was like a chain of criminality. Now, New York was like the peak of the criminality. Then it got smaller to Philly. Then it came to Coatesville. But it's still the dark side of what we call humanity. It might not be the highest potential of dark side, but there was a dark side. And I saw absolute poverty. And then I had the fortune to be saved only by grace. I could only understand this is to somehow get good enough grades, because that's all I focused on was my grades, because there was nothing to get into really. And then I went to Villanova I got a science scholarship for Villanova. And in that science scholarship, that taught me how to get to the truth of things, not just what I felt about something, but the actual truth. I had to dig deeper. I had to research. I had to cross, verify. It put me through the most intense training I've ever gone through in my entire life. Was at Villanova University as a biology major. And again, a science scholarship. I didn't go there on sports. I had a science scholarship. So I went there to study, and, with a biology major and a pre-med focus, I started the pre-med club and did a bunch of good things around the campus. So long story short, my point is I saw absolute poverty in Coatesville, and then I saw absolute wealth. For those who don't know, Villanova is on what's called the main line of PA, and the main line is the most wealthy part of Pennsylvania from what I understand, or at least the county. I think it's the wealthiest county in Pennsylvania, yeah. And they are the wealthiest people in that area. Now, I had no idea what Vanguard was at the time, but Vanguard is like one of the top wealthiest companies ever, and their headquarters is near the main line. So I had no idea that was around there. But there's a lot of wealth, like to the point where I went to a high school where you left a Louis Vuitton purse out, it was gone in 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You go to Villanova, you could leave a Louis Vuitton purse in the gymnasium, and it will still be there when you come back to find it. It was just a different culture. And I had to truly appreciate the dark side of humanity and the bright side. Because even the bright side, even though it appears shinier, there's still a dark side to the bright side. So everything has this bipolar, spectrum. And also in the middle is what we call the chasm, the crossover point. So long story short, I came from a family of people who have gone through intensity. Okay, my grandfather was drafted against his will to go to World War II. That had to be the worst gut-wrenching feeling ever. Okay, he's about to start a family, and then he gets news that he has to go off to war. And then on top of that, you have actual millions of people dying in this war. So it's insane what he had to go through. And, he passed his genetics to me. Okay, so I have that genetic, imprint. And my father as well. Again, he's into law enforcement things. Okay, he passed me his genetics. So I came from hardened men. These aren't, it's not a lineage of softness. And I'm saying this because if you guys read the book of, I think it's Kings, it's just listing king after king after king after king. You're like, why would there be a book about kings? Just listing kings. This king begat this king, and this king begot this king. And let me actually read a line from that. So here's a quick example. And Jehoshaphat, the son of Asa, began to reign over Judah in the 4th year of Ahab, king of Israel. Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 25. So it's going through this lineage of monarchy. And I'm saying this because it's a greater picture for those who can understand. Monarchy, that actual word means, mono means one, archy means rule. So one rules. Okay. And back in the day, they used to believe that kings were actually sent from the creator to rule over the people. Because again, like the roller coaster, if God is the most high, the highest ruling, meaning the highest potential energy, then he can pass that to his son. His son, means beta or Ben. Ben means son of. Beta means the effect. Okay. Alpha means the causation point. So when God says he's the Alpha and Omega, it means the beginning and end. He is the starting point. Okay. Of the most potential energy, and he could be the actual opposite and equal opposite, meaning he created the entire spectrum. The download I had in the shower was about the power of prayer. Now, to truly understand this, I'm going to use music production understanding, because I want you guys to understand this, is that the subconscious mind is a filter. Okay. So similar to how we have filters, bandpass filters, low pass filters, high pass filters, it's a filter. Reality is noise. It's all potentiality. It's every possible outcome. When we have a subconscious mind that has beliefs, we are filtering for a specific harmonic structure, a specific frequency. The more convicted your beliefs are, the more high of a resonance you have. So when people tell you that you're aligned with the creator, and the power of prayer is to align you with the creator. Why would you want to be aligned with the creator? It's because the creator has the infinite source. What most people chase is false idols. Okay. Temporary energy capacity. If I were to think about like a roller coaster again, is most people worship. Okay. Like I said, if God is, and I say he, just that's the old term, but if God is, okay, the highest of high, meaning the most of all things, then a false god is something that is not the most of all things. Okay. This could be celebrity that people worship. It could be social status people worship. It could be money people worship. The word worship is talking about where do you pull your energy from? Okay. And prayer is not just something you say when you close your eyes. It's your subconscious mind. The filter that you have in your subconscious mind needs to be adjusted. That's what prayer is for, to readjust that filter to try and align with the creator. Because when you align with the creator, you're pulling from an infinite energy source through what's called resonance. Resonance is how, your guitar works. For example, if I take the string of a guitar, it goes across the soundboard, the saddle, onto the body of the guitar, and it goes into the cavity of the guitar and it amplifies. How does that all work? If you hit a string that does not sound loud by itself, okay, that energy goes from the string, travels through the saddle, onto the soundboard, into the cavity, and it amplifies. But how does it amplify? Through what's called resonance or positive wave interference. So I'm trying not to get too deep into physics. So let's go back to the music example to make this make more sense. What we are doing with our subconscious mind with prayer, the power of prayer, is that we are trying to adjust our antennas to align with the creator because they have infinite potentiality. False gods, false things that we follow in this world, okay, people who are poor leaders or give out negative messages or whatever the thing is, or celebrity or gossip or news, those are fleeting capacities. Okay, so again, think of it like a roller coaster. If God is the highest point of the roller coaster, people think because there's a bump in the roller coaster that that's the highest peak, and it's not the highest peak. That's why I said, and let me demonstrate this with some noise here. So here we have noise. Noise is every frequency. Okay. It's just scattered frequency. I would show you guys a graph, but we don't have time to go through all that. Okay. So just listen to the tone that we're about to create. Now, what is a frequency? In order to resonate, you have to have a frequency. A frequency is a cycle. A cycle means you have to have a point of ups and downness. Okay. A polarity to it. So with noise, there's no defined cycle because it's all cycles. It's all probability. So what we do with our subconscious mind is we focus, we gain a conviction with our beliefs until we have a focus. Focus is shaping the filter to have more what's called emphasis or resonance. Emphasis means to make more important or prioritize or focus upon. So let me show you the magic of the subconscious mind. So here we have white noise. And what happens if we had what's called a bandpass filter in this case? Okay, now we hear some tonality. It sounds like, river or something. What happens if we emphasize or focus on that belief and conviction until we believe it 100%? Now, here's the one thing about the subconscious mind. People think beliefs are just on and off switches. Like either you believe in God or you don't believe in God. The question becomes more of a scale, okay, of belief, because you might believe in God when your life's in danger. But when it comes to trusting that God will guide your steps, blind faith, then you don't actually truly believe in God. So there's a scale. Okay. It's 1 to 10 scale, for example. Now you might be at 5. You believe something exists. You don't know what exists. So they define that as agnostic. And there's all types of, again, it's a spectrum. It's not just an on and off switch. Beliefs are the same exact way. The more you reinforce your neuronal pathways determines how energy travels through your actual brain. Okay. And your brain controls your subconscious mind. So the long story shorter is energy wants to travel down the path of least resistance. The more you reinforce and go over and over and over into your auto-suggested mind, into your subconscious mind, the more you dig out a pathway for energy to travel the path of least resistance. Like, for example, the Amazon River goes like this. It just is like a snake. It's because that's the path of least resistance. If you study centrifugal force, centripetal force, you can understand that stuff isn't really a straight line. It's a circular way to go about reality. I'm not an expert, so I don't want to bore you guys to tears about science. I guess my point is, the more you reinforce something, the more you are convicted, and the higher that conviction reinforces a belief, okay, in that scale of 1 to 10. And the higher you believe something, the more it's filtered and chiseled in this actual filter. So when you have a belief of 2, okay, let's say you're a beginner producer and you're just learning production, you don't really think you can make beats like that. So you gain a little confidence. So instead of just being clueless and chaotic like this, you gain a little confidence. Now you're in your sector of content, for example. Now you gain more skills over time. You learn at busyworkspeeds.com. You learn music theory, mixing, sound design. You learn online business. You learn, what else is there? Mixing, the Pro Tools, FL Studio, Logic Pro, Ableton. You learn all the tools, and then you gain more confidence. You're gaining more reinforcement, positive reinforcement, okay? To feel more convicted about your belief that you are an actual music producer and skilled. Okay, so the more and more you train, and the more you train, the more chiseled you become. Now, once you get to a certain point, you create what's called an identity, or you have filtered so much through your conviction that you create an actual tone or a frequency. And this is what computes and aligns with the creator. Okay, so you guys hear that tone? That's when you have full conviction, do you create a frequency. So just because you think you're saying a message in your head, that's not necessarily aligning with the creator. That's not necessarily prayer. Prayer is an all the time thing. The consciousness is moving our focus. Okay. So when you sit there and pray with your eyes closed or with your hands folded or whatever it is, you're trying to move your focus so that you gain more resonance, okay, or emphasis around a specific point. And then when you reinforce that over and over and over again, then you become that tone. Then you can actually communicate with the higher source, because noise. Let me show you guys something else here too. Let me load this up. All right. So what I've done is I've doubled serum so that it has the same exact setting. So we have 2 serums right here. Let me mute the one and play one. So here's one serum with this filter, this bandpass filter, meaning you don't have much confidence in your work. You don't really have a belief system. You haven't really thought out what you actually believe. You're just kind of haphazardly doing stuff, watching random videos on YouTube. So this is your state, this chaotic, noisy state, very distracted state, because you can be all things. Okay, there's infinite potentiality still. You haven't chiseled out a defined pathway. Okay, then you add another serum. It's just the same thing, doubled in volume. So doing more of the same exact thing, not having a focus, gives you just the same thing louder. Okay, it's not actually giving you more focus. But what happens if we turn our resonance all the way up in this case? Okay, so here's what resonance, now I forgot which serum I'm on, so okay, we're on this one. So here's what happens when you have the resonance or your focus or the power of prayer aligning you, okay, with a specific frequency through your focus. You have a tone. Now, when you align with the creator, okay, like they say, a little goes a long way. Okay, it's talking about resonance, because the same way a guitar string is a small object that makes a small sound, it amplifies because it has positive wave interference. Okay, when its energy goes from the string through the saddle to the soundboard, and through the cavity of the guitar, now it's a bigger sound. Because how did the small sound go to a bigger sound? Resonance. Energy travels through, let's think of it like an energy bridge, for example. When you resonate with something, it's like, crossing a bridge, for example. Okay, and you could send information or energy through that resonance or that bridge. So what happens now if we basically have two serums playing this tone? Okay, now it's going to be double in volume. I don't want to blow you guys' ears out. So here's the one. Here's two. Now we still have some noise there. We still have some limiting beliefs, they call it. But the signal has become stronger. Okay, the tone has become stronger. There's more of an identity for that tone. So when you are praying, okay, here's the download I had. You are pulling from the creator's infinite source. You're trying to align with the creator's source because there's infinite outcomes from that. There's infinite resonance. There's infinite energy to be had. Okay. And if you feel weak in this life, you have to pull from something that is stronger than you. If you feel like you can't use your force to get through this battle, you have to pull from an outside source. This is why, a lot of crazy rituals would go down back in the day. Some people worship cow. Some people worship Moloch. Some people worship all types of random gods, the god of war, the god of this and that, Zeus, and all types of stuff. It's because they were pulling you have to think back in the day. A lot of them went to war, for example. And when you're going to war, there's not a certainty that you're going to come out the other side. So you feel like, man, there's a lot to explain here. I'll just put it this way. I just got to give you guys the science. Force is mass times acceleration, meaning my force that I put out in this human body is only equivalent to the mass that I have, how much weight I weigh, versus how much actual acceleration I have, my speed. Okay. But there's a max to that. Okay. So in order for me to get stronger, I have to galvanize troops. Those troops are more forces. This is called a force multiplier. Okay. Because now we have, instead of just 10 newtons, we have 100 newtons because we're all pushing in one direction. Okay. With one alignment, one direction. Okay. So what they call work is force times a distance. Okay, so when you go to work, that means you're doing you're pushing forward over a specific distance, aka time, because time is measured in distance. Okay, and what power actually is, like the way people rule monarchies, for example, one ruler is they use power. They weren't on the battlefield. Okay, they were leveraging other people's forces. Looks like my camera's glitching. Give me a sec, guys. The scientific definition for power is work over time. So if force equals mass times acceleration, there's a limit there. If work is force times the distance, okay, now it's growing in terms of the output. Then we have what's called power, okay, which is work over time. So either reduce time to gain more power, to do something more efficiently, like through AI or through some tool, okay, or you increase what's called the workforce, that top numerator. And that's done by, again, galvanizing more troops and more forces like yourself. And the way you do that is through resonance. Now I'm saying this frame because this is, their time of living was all about people taking land and dominion and all this type of stuff. So there was a lot more war going on. And, they had to they understood their limit. So they said, who can they go to for more power? Okay. And this is why people say people do deals with the devil in the music industry and all types of stuff, because you can't force your way. You have a maximum. You have 24 hours in a day. And you have a limited amount of force that you can put out into the universe. Unless you can resonate or multiply through infinite influence, to attract more troops on your behalf, okay, then you are limited to what you're doing every single day. So as an independent music producer, for example, or music creator, you can only go but so far. You have to attract a team through resonance, a message. Why did they say have a brand message? It's because that is a frequency you're aligning with, okay? And you're trying to galvanize other people to head to the same outcome, the same goal. Okay, so that is what it means to push forward. So a lot of people do deals with the devil in the music industry because they don't have the power, because the system is built to leverage other people's work. Okay, so there's a power base there that people just tap into. So all that to be said, is back in the day, they would worship these different deities because they believed they had a power source. But again, like I said, if the creator is all things, everything else is just a subsidiary. It's not the real thing. You're seeing an illusion of the real thing. Okay, the son of, the ben of, the real thing. The alpha is not what they're following. They're following the beta, the gamma, the delta, whatever, whatever letter is after the alpha in this scenario. Another point here is that in Western world, we were taught that zero equals nothingness. Okay, but what makes the creator so unique is that it took all of things, made it balanced. Okay, that's what zero is +1, -1, balanced. That's what the creator has done. And it could take that balance and then create dynamic. That's what life is. And then we have a spectrum. Okay, so that's what the creator is. Creator's not nothingness spawning into somethingness. Even in the Bible, I believe it talks about wisdom being the co-creator, almost like a matrix or a field that the creator used to create. So how was there nothingness if there was wisdom? So I'm not a preacher or a teacher who can go deeper in that. I guess my point in trying to tell you guys this is that when a force feels like they can't win the battle, they have to call upon something outside of themselves through what's called prayer, but they could be praying to the wrong thing. Okay. They could be trying to absorb power from, again, a small bump in that roller coaster that isn't the real height of the roller coaster. So that small bump, it may seem like, just because we're getting a little energy from that thing, it may seem like that's the source and we should keep focusing on that, but it depletes. Okay. And God doesn't die. God doesn't have just enough energy to give you fuel and then you got to refuel again. That's not how the creator works. It's infinite energy. Whereas a false god has almost like a gas station. You have to keep refilling up every week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. So it's not the true source. And I guess what I'm trying to say is they called upon these energy capacitors, for those who understand how energy works, through schematic. Basically, capacitors hold energy. In short, it has to do with electrons and a deeper understanding. I'm not, again, haven't taken physics in a long time. The point is a capacitor holds energy. So people, when they tap into these different capacitors, whether it's gossip, news, drama, whatever the false god is, they think because they're draining a capacitor that is going to be a continuous source of traffic or a consistent source of energy. Okay. Until that capacitor depletes, then they're like, oh crap, I got to find another capacitor. Same way a vampire looks for different victims to suck blood. It's the same storyline, the same metaphor. But God is all energy. You don't have to drain the creator. It just is all things at balance. Okay. So I just want you guys to understand the power of prayer. It goes deeper than just closing your eyes and saying, the thing you were taught to just ritually say without any actual belief or conviction behind it. Basically, your prayer is, the goal of it is to create a focus for your subconscious mind's filter. And when you have more conviction about your belief about what you're actually saying to yourself, you actually take the infinite potentiality of the universe and you're narrowing it down to create a frequency. And when you create a frequency, you create an identity. What is an identity? What separates a sawtooth, for example, from a sine wave? Why do they sound completely different? It's the harmonic structure. Okay. A sawtooth has even harmonics for the most part and some odd harmonics, depending on how you structure it. A square wave has only odd harmonics. Okay. A sine wave is just the fundamental frequency. A triangle wave, is, I believe, a blend. I can't remember exactly what a triangle wave is off the top of my head in terms of harmonics, but it's not as many harmonics as a sawtooth or a square wave. So if these objects of sound all have a different harmonic structure, the same thing happens with our belief system. We can create all these different harmonics based on what we are focusing upon. And until we repetitively, through whether it's autosuggestion or just praying, whatever you guys believe the term is for you, you're trying to create a neuronal pathway that is reinforced, positively reinforced, so that when you have thoughts, they go through a filter. And when they go through that filter, it gives you the result you actually want that's in alignment with the creator that you guys believe that you're serving. Okay. And even in the Bible, I think it says, pray for your enemies. Why would God pray for the enemy if they wanted the enemy destroyed? Okay. It's because God is gangster. I don't think people understand how gangster of I think people think that's a soft line, like pray for your enemies, let them slap you in the face and turn the other cheek. It's like, look, that slap in the cheek was like a mosquito flying by. It didn't hurt. This is like, I turn my head, I'll turn it right back the other way. Same thing, praying for your enemies, for example. It's saying ultimately that if God, the creator of all things, okay, is good to the unthankful and the thankful, the grateful or the ungrateful, he just creates whether you like it or not. He is not creating for your approval. That's the gangster part of it. The creator is not creating for your approval. It's creating for his approval. And I say his in an archaic way, but its approval. Okay. When it made the universe, it said, okay, I'm done. It's good. It didn't say, hey, Adam, do you like the universe? Okay. If you like it, then I like it. So when you pray for your enemies, it's saying that if God will give to the unthankful just as much as the thankful, it's not about your approval as a human. Okay. So God's going to be God, whether you like it or not. So the power of prayer, I want you guys to understand how deep it goes into the subconscious mind. And I want you guys to focus on what you actually want. Now, here's the one last thing here I forgot is dissonance. Okay. These are called counterintentions. There's something in physics called negative wave interference. Okay. Basically, when a +1 wave, okay, meets a -1 wave, it cancels out to nothing, or we call it nothing, but really it's just balanced. Okay. The goal of resonance is to create peaks above the noise. The way you do that is positive wave interference, not negative wave interference. Okay. So negative wave interference would be like us cutting a notch EQ. That's the negative wave interference. Sometimes we have to do negative wave interference on beliefs that are holding us back. But long story short, you have what are called counterintentions. And this is called dissonance in music. When you have a belief that is getting masked by another frequency that's right next to it. So for example, I can't teach all this in one video, but if I have, let me see if I could try this to teach this in a second. I can kind of teach this, but not to the level that I actually want to teach this. But basically what dissonance is, or masking in this case, is when you have two frequencies fighting for the same spot. They're very close, but they're not the same exact frequency. So going back to our noise, for example, here's a tone based off of just noise and resonance, meaning you have a strong belief that you're reinforcing from the infinite probability. Then when you start adding in a dissonant tone, now the dissonant tone is going to amplify itself, the negative reinforcement that you guys add to your mind, or the negative self-talk you might be adding to yourself, or holding on to old habits, or letting emotion drive you more than logic, things like that. So if I turn this up, now the ear can't really decipher like which frequency we're hearing. It's confused. Okay, so as I turn the other one down, the is overriding our initial tone. That's called masking. Okay, I know that wasn't the greatest example because it's super high frequency, but basically what masking is if the negative thought or the negative outcome that you don't want is amplifying more because you keep reinforcing the negative, which our brains are kind of designed to reinforce the negative based off of what's called threats. There's a great talk by Lisa Feldman and Dr. Huberman, Andrew Huberman. Look it up. It's called Lisa Feldman and Dr. Andrew Huberman. It talks about the subconscious mind and emotional, basically how the brain handles emotions. Okay. You guys need to watch that video. Even if you're not a science major, it just talks about how the brain filters out what's called a threat versus something that's seen as positive. So you need to understand that. Okay. And, you know, when you have negative reinforcement of something supersede your conviction about something, then you let an outside source influence your behavior. Okay. So that's why, again, the creator is ultimate, because nothing influences the creator. It's itself. It doesn't need any approval of anything else. But when you have other beliefs mask your intent, you can be influenced because it's masking your intent. It's louder, mentally louder than your own intent. You're letting seeds into your mental garden that weren't meant to be in your garden. Okay, so don't let the weeds grow. We can go deeper with this, but guys, read my books. Go to busyworksbeats.com/book. I have a book called Producer Bible. That's the one you want to focus on. It's about mindset. Again, I translated basically the parables from the Bible and made it into talk that we can understand as music producers and music artists in modern day talk. Okay, so that's my way of giving Bibles in a sense. Now, I do try to give Bibles, but they cost me $15 a piece. So if you want to be a part of that, just indirectly, now I don't have a charity or a webpage for a charity, but if you truly want to be a part of that ultimate mission, that's my ultimate goal. All right. So thank you guys for watching. It's Game from busyworksbeats.com. Peace out, guys. Oh, again, 3 things: show love, be filled with the spirit of truth, complete your assignment. Peace out, guys.